The Bleacher Report app is your destination for sports. Right now, the NBA's heating up, March Madness is here, and MLB is almost back. Every day there's a new headline, a new highlight, a new moment you've got to see for yourself. That's why I stay locked in with the Bleacher Report app. For me, it's about staying connected to my sports. I can follow the teams I care about, get real-time scores, breaking news, and highlights all in one place. Download the Bleacher Report app today so you never miss a moment.
Hey, it's Howie Mandel, and I am inviting you to witness history as me and my Howie Do It gaming team take on Gilly the King and Wallow 267's $1 million gaming in an epic global gaming league video game showdown. 4 rounds, multiple games, 1 winner, plus a halftime performance by multi-platinum artist Travie McCoy. Watch all the action and see who wins and advances to the championship match against Neo right now at globalgamingleague.com. That's globalgamingleague.com. Everybody games.
If you want a 12% bump in your team's revenue this quarter, the data suggests you should probably stop telling them how to do their jobs.
Which, I mean, is a pretty terrifying thought for most managers.
Absolutely, because traditionally, getting a new job was a lot like buying a house in a really strict homeowners association. You know, you get the keys, you walk in, and you are immediately handed this massive binder of rules.
Right. The floor plan is fixed. The paint colors are pre-approved.
Exactly. And your job description, it's etched in stone. You do not change the house changes you.
And the occupant is expected to simply maintain the property, right? You never act as the architect. The entire structure of the traditional employment contract was basically built on that top-down assumption.
But looking at the modern workplace, that static, rigid employment contract is dead, or at least it is dying incredibly fast. Today, we're stepping into a landscape where employees don't just, execute their jobs anymore. They actively co-create them.
They do, and we have a fascinating stack of research to get through on this.
We really do. Our primary mission for this deep dive today is to decode a brilliant article by Dr. Jonathan H. Westover. It's on what he calls proactive job design.
Yeah, and it is an incredibly thorough piece of work. It's anchored by this rigorous 3-wave study of 324 Spanish employees. But it also synthesizes like a massive mountain of global organizational research.
Right.
Dr. Westover looks really closely at the mechanics. What actually happens to the bottom line and to the human psyche when the people doing the work decide to redraw the blueprints themselves.
Which is exactly why this matters to you listening right now. Whether you're a manager pulling your hair out, wondering why your blanket empowerment initiatives keep falling flat, or, you're an employee trying to figure out how to prep for a meeting to negotiate a role that actually fits your life.
Consider this deep dive your ultimate cheat sheet to reshaping work.
Okay, let's unpack this. We need to start by understanding that proactive job design isn't just, one big bucket.
No, not at all. To really grasp the physics of what's happening inside these companies, we have to distinguish between 2 very different flavors of job redesign.
2 flavors. Oh,
right. The first is called expansive job crafting, and the second is idiosyncratic deals, or ideals for short.
So let's define those, because they sound like thick HR jargon, but they are actually behaviors we see every single day in the real world.
Yeah, let's start with expansive job crafting. This is informal. It's bottom up. It is all about changing the how of your work.
The how. Got it.
It's when an employee proactively reframes their tasks or seeks out developmental feedback or volunteers for stretch assignments. And they do this without needing formal permission from management.
Without asking the boss.
Exactly. The source material gives a really vivid example.
Mm-hmm.
Think of a hospital nurse who deliberately reframes their patient interactions.
Okay.
Instead of just mechanically checking off medical tasks like taking blood pressure or administering medication, they emphasize relational care. They take extra time to comfort families, or they learn about the patient's personal lives.
And nobody told them to do that.
Nope. The hospital administration didn't mandate it. They crafted the role internally to make it more meaningful to them.
So job crafting is kind of like rearranging the furniture and painting the walls of your apartment to suit your specific vibe. You're working within the existing space, you aren't changing the square footage, but you're making it uniquely yours.
That's a perfect analogy. Now, contrast that informal tweaking with an idiosyncratic deal or an ideal. These are formal, negotiated changes to the what or the when of your work.
Okay, so this is the serious stuff.
Very much so.
Yeah.
These absolutely require your boss's approval and usually involve human resources.
So Using the apartment analogy again, an ideal is when you go to the landlord and renegotiate the actual lease to get a dedicated parking spot, or like you get official permission to knock down a wall between the kitchen and the living room.
Exactly. The source uses the example of a retail associate negotiating a highly modified schedule so they can attend evening classes, or an employee negotiating to work from home 3 days a week while the rest of the team is in the office.
Right. So it's a bespoke, personalized arrangement that diverges from the standard employment terms.
Right. So crafting is informal and incremental, whereas ideals are negotiated and formal.
So now that we know what employees are actually doing out there, we have to ask the million-dollar question. Do these strategies actually benefit the company? Or are they just, individual perks that make the employee's life easier?
Because if I'm a business leader, I am scrutinizing this for the return on investment.
Right. Show me the ROI.
Well, the ROI is actually staggering for both, but the mechanisms of success are completely different. The data shows that expansive job crafting massively boosts innovation and adaptability.
In what way?
Well, the research highlights a study of Fortune 500 sales teams, the units where members frequently crafted their customer interaction strategies, meaning they were constantly informally tweaking and improving how they pitched based on real-time feedback. They outperformed low crafting units by a 12% bump in quarterly revenue.
Wow. A 12% revenue bump just from getting out of the way and letting people tweak their own workflows on the fly. That is massive.
It really is.
So what about the formal negotiations, the ideals?
Ideals function as the ultimate engine for retention and discretionary effort. Employees who successfully negotiate development, ideals like getting the company to pay for a specialized certification or allowing a sabbatical, they report 23% lower turnover intentions.
That's huge.
And they also show 18% higher in-role performance. When you consider the cost of replacing specialized talent, preserving that institutional knowledge saves an absolute fortune on recruitment and onboarding.
Yeah, the data paints an incredibly clear picture there. Both job crafting and ideals are amazing for the bottom line. Which leads me to the ultimate plot twist in this research. If both of these things work beautifully on paper, why do so many corporate empowerment programs completely self-destruct? I mean, we've all seen companies enthusiastically tell their employees, be proactive, take charge of your career, and then watch it devolve into a dysfunctional mess.
What's fascinating here is what that 324-person Spanish study actually uncovered. It solved this exact puzzle by tracking employees over 3 distinct waves of data collection.
Okay, what do they find?
The researchers found that these two behaviors operate through entirely distinct causal pathways. They require completely different psychological engines to function without breaking the organization.
Let's pop the hood on those engines.
Okay, so the study revealed that job crafting only leads to higher engagement if there is a foundation of psychological safety.
Got it.
And ideals only lead to higher engagement if there is a foundation of organizational justice.
Wait, hold on. Let me push back on that second one. If I want to negotiate an ideal, like, say I want to work from home on Fridays to take care of my dog, why does organizational justice or systemic fairness matter?
It seems counterintuitive on the surface, right?
Yeah. Isn't an ideal inherently about me getting special treatment? It's an individual arrangement.
It is. But think about the ecosystem of a team. If the broader system lacks justice, meaning there isn't procedural fairness in how decisions are made, distributed fairness in who gets what, and interactional fairness in how people are treated, what happens when you secure your special work-from-home deal behind closed doors?
Oh, I see. So organizational justice acts like the immune system of a team.
Exactly.
If you inject a foreign element, like one guy getting Fridays off, and the immune system doesn't recognize the process as fair or transparent, the team's culture attacks the special deal like a virus. It breeds jealousy and resentment.
Because excluded colleagues perceive it as favoritism, and the entire initiative backfires. Your engagement actually drops because your team dynamics become toxic.
That makes total sense.
And the context of the Spanish study makes this mechanism even clearer. Spain has what sociologists call a moderately collectivist high uncertainty avoidance culture.
Let's define that real quick. Uncertainty avoidance, meaning culturally there's a lower tolerance for ambiguity or rule breaking. Like people prefer clear structures and predictable outcomes.
Right. Which means stepping out of line to ask for a special favor feels incredibly risky. In that kind of cultural environment, fairness and interpersonal risk carry massive weight.
So if an employee feels like their ideal is going to make them a social pariah because the approval process was secretive or arbitrary, they won't even ask for it.
Nope. And if they do somehow get it, the resulting guilt and peer rejection will actively destroy their engagement.
That brings the whole picture into focus.
There.
So job crafting needs psychological safety because you need to feel safe to take risks and try new informal methods without getting reprimanded for deviating from the manual.
Yes.
And ideals need organizational justice so that when you do get a formal special arrangement, everyone around you knows it was earned through a fair process, not just because you play golf with the VP of marketing.
Exactly. But here's where it gets really interesting, though. Knowing that psychological safety and organizational justice are the required engines for these behaviors is great theory.
Right.
But you can't just mandate fairness on a break room poster. How are actual companies successfully rewiring their cultures to build these engines? Let's look at the blueprints from some corporate giants, starting with cultivating psychological safety to enable job crafting.
Oh, the ultimate case study here has to be Microsoft under Satya Nadella.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when he took over as CEO, Microsoft had a notoriously rigid, hyper-competitive, know-it-all culture. People were terrified to make mistakes because one failed project could tank your annual review.
Right, it was a very unsafe environment for crafting.
Completely. But Nadella actively shifted the entire corporate philosophy to a learn-it-all culture.
And he didn't just send an email about it, he changed the physics of the organization.
Sure.
He modeled vulnerability. Senior leaders publicly share their mistakes and the lessons they learned.
And more importantly, they changed the performance review metrics, right? They started rewarding learning and collaborative problem solving over just flawless execution.
Yes, employee engagement scores rose 12 points over 3 years. Thousands of engineers suddenly felt safe enough to expansively craft their roles toward emerging tech like cloud computing and AI, simply because the fear of career ruin was removed.
It proves that safety isn't just about being nice. It's about removing the penalty for innovation.
Exactly.
But if Microsoft did it by overhauling performance metrics, I imagine a purely creative company like Pixar has to approach safety completely differently. I mean, you can't just mandate better art.
No, you can't. Pixar builds safety through an institution they call the Brain Trust. It is the ultimate safety net for expansive crafting in a high-stakes creative environment.
How does that work?
Directors present their works in progress to a room of their peers, other seasoned directors and storytellers. Those peers offer candid, sometimes brutal feedback. But the crucial mechanism that makes it work is that the Brain Trust has zero formal authority to mandate changes.
Zero authority.
Zero. The director retains total, absolute control over the film.
Wow. By removing the authority dynamic, the feedback becomes a tool rather than a threat.
Precisely.
That structure allows directors to test wildly unconventional ideas, to craft their storytelling expansively, knowing the room is there to elevate the work, not to punish the creator or hijack the project.
That's right.
Okay, so that illustrates building safety for informal crafting. How do companies build organizational justice so that formal ideals don't destroy team morale?
Well, for the mechanics of justice, we look at Salesforce and Unilever. Salesforce implemented a policy called Success from Anywhere, allowing negotiated hybrid work arrangements.
Okay.
But instead of letting individual managers quietly make bespoke deals with their favorite employees, they built an incredibly robust online portal.
So they standardize the special deals.
Yes. Employees submit their requests, provide business justifications, and get responses within a set time frame based on public criteria.
Yeah.
HR actively tracks the data across the company to ensure there is no demographic bias in who gets approved.
That's brilliant. Unilever took a very similar route with their UWork program, publishing extremely transparent eligibility frameworks. Everyone in the company knew exactly what the criteria were for getting a flexible schedule or a modified role.
Right. The key variable driving engagement wasn't the flexibility itself. It was the transparency of the process.
It creates a fascinating paradox, doesn't it? To safely offer ultimate individual flexibility, a company actually has to build an incredibly rigid, heavily structured, and totally transparent approval system.
It's so true. Without that systemic rigidity, individual flexibility just looks like chaos and favoritism to the rest of the team.
But, a safe culture and a fair portal still aren't enough to get the engine running at full speed. Because if employees don't actually know how to identify skill gaps, or if they don't have the time to try new things, the whole system stalls out.
Right. You need the infrastructure.
We have to look at the structural capabilities. You can't just tell people to redesign their jobs. You have to train them and give them hard resources.
Adobe is a prime example of structural training. They completely overhauled their legacy performance management, replacing it with a program called Check-In,
Check-in.
Yeah. They actively train employees on how to identify their own skill gaps and how to formally propose stretch assignments. And, crucially, they also train managers on how to recognize when an employee is attempting to craft their job and how to pivot from being a gatekeeper to being a resource provider.
And it pays off. Teams with high adoption of Adobe's check-in training boast engagement scores 14 points above the company average.
That's massive.
ING Bank applied a similar philosophy with their agile way of working. By training everyone on how to navigate flat, self-organizing squads without traditional bosses dictating tasks, the frequency of employees actively crafting their jobs jumped from 41% to 68%.
That is a massive behavioral shift, driven purely by giving people the vocabulary and the framework to redesign their days.
Right. But some companies take these structural enablers to extreme lengths. Look at Hair, the massive appliance manufacturer.
Or hair is wild.
They literally dismantled their middle management entirely. They broke a company of tens of thousands of people into tiny micro-enterprises. Employees aren't just negotiating roles, they're essentially acting as internal startup founders.
Which fundamentally changes the motivation. It forces proactive design, because if you don't craft your role to be valuable to your micro team, or if your micro team doesn't provide value to the broader ecosystem, you don't survive.
Exactly. It shifts the daily motivation from pleasing the boss to serving the customer.
Now, even if a company doesn't go to the extreme of tearing down its entire corporate hierarchy, they still have to put their money where their mouth is. They have to resource these initiatives with time and budget.
Right. Show me the money.
Exactly. 3M has been famous for decades for their 15% time policy, giving technical employees 15% of their work week to pursue self-directed projects without demanding an immediate provable ROI. It legitimizes exploration.
And the Post-it note was invented because of that exact policy.
Exactly. But the example that really stood out in Dr. Westover's research was Accenture's career marketplace.
Oh, this was fascinating.
Accenture set up an internal gig economy where employees can propose projects and access development budgets. Employees get a $5,000 budget for learning experiences and upskilling, and they could use it without needing their direct supervisor's pre-approval.
That is incredible. By removing the middle manager bottleneck, Accenture isn't just funding learning, they are institutionally signaling profound trust.
Yes. They are proving through their financial architecture that the company believes the employee knows their own career trajectory and skill gaps better than their boss does.
Think about your own job for a second. If your company handed you a $5,000 budget and 15% of your work week to completely redesign your role, with zero red tape and no manager signature required, what would you immediately change?
It's a wildly empowering concept because it treats the employee as an autonomous adult.
It really is. But giving people money and time brings up a really crucial challenge. How do we ensure this doesn't just evolve into a selfish free-for-all? How does proactive job design become something that is sustainable and productive for an entire team, month after month?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, sustainable redesign has to mature from an individual pursuit to a collective one. It can't just be a bunch of lone wolves optimizing their own schedules at the expense of everyone else.
Right.
It's about building team-level psychological contracts.
So the evolution of job design is moving from me to we.
Precisely. Take Spotify as a model. They organize their engineering teams into autonomous squads. These squads collectively redesign their workflows. They choose their own software tools, they determine their own sprint cadences, and they hold regular retrospectives to analyze what's working and what isn't.
So the crafting isn't happening in isolation in a cubicle. The whole team is co-creating the process together.
Exactly. Patagonia applies this collective mindset beautifully with their famous "let my people go surfing" philosophy.
I love that one.
Right. They enthusiastically encourage employees to craft their schedules around their personal passions, like leaving the office in the middle of the afternoon to go surfing when the waves are good. But the non-negotiable rule holding it all together is that customer and team needs must be met first.
So they negotiate group-level flexibility. There are core hours established for collaboration and then individual control over the rest.
Right. It distributes the benefits equitably, so nobody feels slighted when a colleague grabs their surfboard. It relies on intense peer-to-peer accountability rather than top-down policing.
So what does this all mean for the big, scary annual performance review? Because it feels like a massive disconnect if I spend 12 months brilliantly crafting my job, negotiating ideals, and collaborating with my autonomous squad, and then HR grades me on a rigid 5-point scale based on a job description written in 2018.
Well, that is the ultimate pitfall that destroys proactive cultures. You cannot ask people to proactively redesign their jobs and then punish them for deviating from the standard rubric during review season.
It's totally contradictory.
It is. Deloitte recognized this systemic flaw and completely ditched backward-looking numerical ratings. They moved to a system called performance achievement.
What does that actually look like in practice?
It means sitting down and saying, here is the job I crafted this year, here are the ideals we negotiated, and here's the distinct value it brought to the firm. Evaluate me on this new co-created reality.
Wow.
Managers and employees co-create forward-looking development plans. The metric shifts from compliance to a static manual to actual growth and value creation.
It's treating the employee like an evolving, appreciating asset rather than a defective machine part that needs to be hammered back into shape. We have covered some serious ground today, from the cultural nuances of Spain to the internal gig economy at Accenture. Let's synthesize the ultimate takeaways from this deep dive.
I think the main takeaway is that the era of the blanket, one-size-fits-all corporate empowerment program is officially obsolete. Proactive, targeted redesign is the future of work.
And it all comes down to a core dual pathway. If you are an employee who wants to expansively craft your tasks, changing the how of your daily work, you must find or build a culture of psychological safety where risk isn't punished.
Absolutely.
And if you want to negotiate an ideal, changing the formal what or when of your work, you must demand organizational justice and transparent systems, or the team's immune system will reject it.
And this raises an important question. A provocative thought from Dr. Westover's research for everyone to mull over. With the global talent war, accelerating technological change, and shifting societal expectations about the very purpose of work, the pressure for customized roles is only going to intensify.
It's inevitable.
So the question for you to ponder is this. Are the leaders in your organization courageous enough to actually cede control? Because the data clearly suggests that in the future, trusting employees to steward their own roles within a safe, fair system won't just be a nice perk. It will be the absolute only way to survive.
Ceding control. It's terrifying for a lot of leaders who built their careers on managing the status quo, but the ROI is undeniable. Remember that rigid homeowners association we talked about at the top of the show?
The one with the pre-approved paint colors and the fixed floor plans.
That's the one. It's time to tear up that binder, hand over the tools, and let the people living in the house actually help build it. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take these insights, bring them to your next team meeting or your next one-on-one, and start redesigning the way you work.